In this nitty-gritty Let's Play live stream, we're going to be playing American Mah Jongg at I Love Mahj. The topic for today is recovery. This is in the Jumpstart series, so it's intended for beginners and even intermediate players. I'm sure that some experienced players might appreciate some of these ideas. I want to say thank you so much for watching my videos. Also, thank you to our moderators who are going to be helping monitor the chat today. This is a nitty-gritty format, so we're not going to do any socialization. We're going to focus on the topic at hand. With that, I'm going to share my screen and we'll get started with a short presentation, and then we'll do gameplay with commentary for the rest of the session. At around maybe 5 or 10 minutes before the end of this session, I'm going to do a giveaway. I'm going to give away 5 channel memberships. The channel memberships come with perks, and you can learn about it if you go to my website and click Get Involved, and then scroll down to the YouTube section and you can learn about that. One of the primary benefits is that you get extra live streams ad-free. So learn more about the channel memberships on my website, and let's go ahead and dig into the topic for today. Thank you for coming. I appreciate you being here. Hope everyone's okay. I'm gonna, let me get this presentation in the right mode. Okay, so I'll share my screen now. Okay, here we go. This is in the Jumpstart series, which is intended to reduce the feeling of overwhelm or anxiety when people first learn how to play the game. This one hopefully will help people who get upset or go on tilt, shall we say, after making a mistake, or play in uncertainty because they're just anxious about what's going to happen if they make the wrong choice. It's all okay because you can recover, and that's what this is about. So let me explain first about recovery. The idea is that with recovery, it's a return to a normal state of health, mind, or strength, the action or process of regaining possession or control of something lost or stolen or lost. Now in Mahjong, that basically occurs when somebody makes the wrong choice, or maybe makes an incorrect decision, or has some kind of an oversight. Because Mahjong is such a flexible game, there's hope. With the game of Mahjong, it's divided in 3 phases: the Charleston, the play, and the pay. With the Charleston, it's a big part of the process because this is where the transformation happens. So it's a big chunk of the game. It can set you up for success if you make the right decisions at the right time. And then the game continues with the play, and we're going to talk more about that. So focus on this transformation phase to set yourself up for success, and know that there are things that you can do later if you happen to make a mistake. First, during the Charleston, you should focus on defensive passing, because you're not only working on your own hand development, but you're also giving away tiles to your opponents, and your opponents could benefit from your passes if you're not careful. So if you are looking at a dealt hand, in this case, you can see we have a flower, 3-4 bam, 3-4-5 crack, 3-4-5 dot. We can maybe play some kind of a 3-4-5 hand. So we could, let's say, discard north, maybe even one of the dragons, and let's say I wouldn't pass 2 dragons here. I think that'd be pretty risky. But for this first pass, maybe let a 3 go and focus on some form of 3, 4, 5, or maybe even like numbers with 4s and dragons. The other thing, if that's not possible, sometimes with your dealt hand and your initial decision, you may need to do some riskier passes. So a single wind or dragon with a number, 2 different numbers, 2 different suits, let's say, like the one before, 3 bam, 5 dot, that's the best kind of a pass. And then if you can't do that defensive pass, the next step down in risk would be a different number from each suit. So for example, in this dealt hand, we could pass a 1 crack, a 7 bam, and a 9 dot. These are all odds, but they're in different suits. So you're mitigating the risk a little bit, with the focus for this particular hand being on a year hand. So you would want to keep your evens. Now, the East might be a good tile to pass if you decided not to play the concealed hand on this year's card. That could mitigate the risk a little bit of passing all odds. So maybe you could pass the East with a 1 crack and a 7 bam, and that would take it to a little bit lower risk because we'd be at that first bullet, wind or dragon with a different numbered tile in a different suit. So by discarding with this single wind and then 2 different numbers in 2 different suits, you're mitigating the risk a little bit more by giving up the wind. Another low risk, mid-level risk, I guess you could say, because we're on the 3rd bullet here, would be tiles in the same category. And even that pass before were all odds, but at least they were in different suits. So in this case, we have a pair of 7s and an 8-9. So we could maybe do north-south with 7-8, or we could do something with 7-8-9. So we could give up on the little tiles, maybe pass 2 dot, 3 bam, and a white dragon. That is going to be a little bit risky, more so than the other 2 examples, because the 2-3 are consecutive. So these could be used in the consecutive category. And then the 2 with a white dragon could be used in the year category. One way to mitigate the risk here would be to give up the 9 and focus on that wind option, north and south with 7-8. That would mitigate the risk of passing in one category. We could do a 3-9 with a dragon. The 3-9 would fit with 3-6-9, which is a category on the card, but that is the toughest category to play because there are only 3 numbers that are used in that category. So anyone in that category is going to have a really strong representation of 3s, 6s, and 9s. So if you're going to pass in one category, 3-6-9 is the best way to go. Hold the tiles that can be used in consecutive run or maybe odds because you have more numbers to work with. Even the even category has 4 numbers, whereas 3-6-9 has only 3. So if you're going to do a risky pass and those tiles can be used for 3-6-9, that's okay. At least you're mitigating the risk. Another riskier pass going towards the high level risk would be passing tiles in the same suit. So here we have an example of a 3-6-9 hand and we have a 2-5-7 to pass. That could be risky in one suit. Somebody could play maybe consecutive run 2, 3, 4, 5 or 5, 6, 7, 8, let's say, but you could also even play an addition hand 2, 5, 7. So that would be a bit risky. One way to mitigate the risk would be to give up the other 2. So you're not passing all in one suit. Pass the 2 bam with a 5-7 in dots. That would mitigate the risk a little bit. So you always want to look for the opportunity to mitigate the risk in a pass while not affecting your own hand. The 2s are not needed here because we have a lot of 3, 6, 9. 2 multiples, the 3 crack and the 6 dot. So 3, 6 points to 3, 6, 9. So 2s, we don't need those at all. The most risky pass that you can do would be white dragons or flowers, and you don't want to pass these if at all, ever. So we would not, let's say if you would pass the 2 bam with a 5 dot and a white dragon, that would be a little risky because of the year category, or maybe a corresponding dragon hand with dots. One way that you can mitigate that risk is to keep the white dragon and pass a 2-4 bam with the 5 dot. And this player could still do some kind of a 1, 2, 3, 4 hand. 1, 2, 1, 2 crack, 1, 2 dot, 3 bam pair concealed consecutive. So there are typically options during the Charleston where you can go with an option that will allow you to pass safely. The most risky pass is like numbers and pairs. You want to avoid this at all costs because I believe it's 44% of the hands on the card use like numbers, and also pairs are in every hand on the card. So you want to avoid passing like numbers and pairs because they will more likely than not help your opponent. So with this example, we have a pair of flowers and a pair of white dragons. So whatever we do, we would want to use those 2 pairs. So maybe play a year hand. We could pass, let's say, a 9 crack, 9 bam, 2 bam, but passing 9s would be very risky. Instead, mitigate the risk by passing 1 9, 1 2, and 1 wind. And that would take us all the way back to the lowest risk type of pass. Pass defensively so that you're not helping your opponent. You want to help yourself. You want to focus on your own hand, but don't help your opponent by passing risky tiles. So when you're focused on your own hand, there are 3 tactics that you can use to set yourself up for success, but also simplify your decision making. If you adopt these 3 tactics, it's going to make your life a lot easier when it comes to playing the game. The first tactic is called optimize. This is where you focus on multiples. If you have a multiple in your hand, pair, pung, kong, if you get lucky, you want to target that, and whatever choice you make, let that drive the decisions. Pair, pung, kong, if you've got it, use it. Because in the end, you're going to need it. Every hand on the card uses multiples. The smallest multiple, a pair. The biggest multiple, a quint. But every hand has them. So if you target them from the beginning, you're going to set yourself up for success. So in this case, let's see here, we have 1 5 or 1 3 5. So we could do little odds, but you could also do consecutive run. And sometimes you're going to have the ability to go maybe 2 different ways, or even 3, but eventually you're going to need to make a decision and whittle down your options to 1. The next tactic is called maximize. This is when you want to choose a focus based on the predominant pattern. In this dealt hand, we have no multiples, all single tiles. I call this a wide spread. When you have a wide spread, you want to look for a pattern in the hand that can allow you to focus on a category with most of your tiles. So here we have a lot of 3, 6, 9. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 9 tiles towards 3, 6, 9. That's significant. So we could pass 1 bam, 2 dot, 5 dot, and focus on 3, 6, 9. There's also, let's see here. If you, okay, so here we have no multiples, but we picked, or we were given tiles that created multiples. So you want to reassess. In this case, the multiples that developed were 3s and 6s. So we can stay in that category. But let's say instead of a 6 dot, a 4 dot came in, then we could switch to 3-4 instead of 3-6-9. So look at the multiples that develop and go with the trend. Focus on the multiples and choose a category that will use most of them. If you have even more multiples that kind of don't go together, choose a category that will use most of your multiples. The last tactic is called streamlining. This is when you focus on consecutive run. Consecutive run is the most powerful category on the card, and there's a reason for it. It's because there are 3 suits numbered 1 through 9. It's the biggest chunk of the tiles in the set. Winds and dragons, there are only 4 winds and 3 dragons. So the number tiles make up way more time, they have more tiles than any other. So if you focus on the 1 through 9 tiles, the numbered tiles, you have far more to work with than the options with winds and dragons. So streamline by focusing on the consecutive tiles, consecutive run. And if you can stack these, you'll have a power play. Very powerful if you can use all 3 tactics. Optimize by targeting multiples, maximize by using most of your tiles, and streamline by focusing on consecutive run. So if you have a multiple and you can use most of your tiles for a consecutive hand, that would be a power play. So here are the results. Once you get through the Charleston, you can assess your results in 3 ways, or really 3 positions, let's say. If you have more than 4 discards, consider yourself to be an underdog for that game. That just means that you want to take a low risk approach to the game until you have a stronger hand. You don't want to have any gaps in whatever it is that you chose to play, and you want to have as few weaknesses as possible. So an example of a gap would be if you're playing 3-6-9 and you have no 6s. Instead, play little or an odd hand, 1-3-5-7-9. No 6s, play odds, because 3s and 9s are odd. That would be a low risk approach. Now, if you fill the gap, you get a 6, then stay in 3-6-9 and leverage the strength of the hand. If you have pairs of, let's say, 3s and 9s, and then you get a 6. So look at the developing hand and make a decision on how much risk you can take based on the strength of the hand as it develops. So the next position would be a contender. If you have 4 discards, you could be a contender for that game. Take a more moderate risk approach. You can take a little more risk than someone who's an underdog with more discards. They have a little more gathering to do. And then finally, the strongest position would be a front runner. And this would be a player who has less than 4 discards after the Charleston. They can play to win, push, regardless of risk, because they're probably out in front. They have a more well-developed hand than any of their opponents. Now, that's an assumption. This is not written in stone by any means. You just want to consider where you might be in relation to your opponents based on the number of discards that you have in your hand. Here are some examples. We have the first dealt hand, and here, this would be after the Charleston, actually. So this is after the Charleston. We have odds 1-1. This is the first 1 suit option, 1-3-5-7-9. There's a flower in there that maybe could be used later. I typically don't pass flowers. So after the Charleston, if you're left with a flower, you could discard it, because I wouldn't want to, or I wouldn't recommend passing it. So in this case, we have 4 discards in that flower. So this player would probably be an underdog, even though maybe that flower could be used later. For example, let's say this player draws a red dragon. Maybe they could play the 3rd hand down. But that would be making decisions based on hope. And you don't want to do that. You want to make decisions based on fact, what you have in your hand. 1, 3, 5, 7, 9, no gaps. That's the first hand. So that's what I would focus on. Even with 5 discards, that's a pretty good result. And this player has their pairs for that particular hand. So I would say, even though this player's an underdog, they still have a really good chance to further develop their hand. They just need to draw a few more tiles. They could pung the 1, pung the 9. They need to build that 5. So that would be an example of a weakness. That 5 crack needs to be a Kong, and they have only 1 tile. Here's another example. This player has consecutive run in their hand, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 1 suit, corresponding dragon. They have 3 clear discards, but with this particular example, they could play consecutive run number 1, number 3, or number 8. Because there are so many options, they're spread thin. I would say they're an underdog because they're not going to be able to keep all these tiles. Even we have only 3 clear discards, but there are more discards in here because we cannot keep all these tiles. For example, this player could play 1, 2, 3, 4, pung, pung, kong, kong. So they would have the dragon, the clear discards, 3, that's 4. They wouldn't need the flower, that's 5. And they would have a pair that they'd have to throw away later. That's a lot of discards. They could also maybe play the first odd or the first consecutive hand. They would have 5 discards in that case because they wouldn't need the flower, the dragon, or the clear discards. 5 discards, that's a lot. So this player would be an underdog, even though they have a hand with no gaps. So they need to take a low risk approach until they have a stronger hand. Here's an example of a Winds and Dragons number 7. So this is the concealed hand. We have no gaps, north, east, west, south, extra east, which is fine. And then they have a pung of 7s in BAMs at 7 dot, which would be a keeper for the concealed hand. They could also maybe play east and west with 7, 8. So they have options. If they played the concealed hand, they could be a contender because they would throw away, let's see, for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This would be this. I need to have the east throne and the 8 dot, not the 7. The 7 would be a keeper. So I need to update this slide. So in this case, they'd still be a contender because they could throw east with an 8 dot and a 9 crack. East 8 dot, 9 crack, keep the 7 because they need like numbers. This is a like number hand, no gaps, 3 pairs plus the flowers. They have 2 clear discards. They could maybe play like numbers with dragons or like numbers with flowers. With 2 discards, I would say that they're a front runner, primarily because they can claim discards with either hand. For example, if they play the first hand with flowers, they could Kong with the flowers with one of the jokers. They could pung 2 of the ones and Kong the other. So they're set for that first hand. They could also pung the 2 dragons and build on one of the ones for the dragon hand, the second one down. That's a little bit of a weaker option. If they were to play that hand, they probably would be a contender because they would have the dragons to discard, the 3 and the 5. So count your discards after the Charleston. If you have more than 4 discards, you're going to be an underdog. If you have 4, you're going to be a contender. If you have less than 4, you could be a front runner. This player still has some options. So I would say this player could consider themselves to be a front runner if they played the first hand. But if they don't play the first hand, I would say they should consider themselves to be a contender because they would have a little more work to do. What do you mean by low risk approach? Does that mean not making an exposure? Yes. That's one example not making an exposure with jokers that could be, let's say, exchanged. It's really more about committing with an exposure, whether it has a joker or not. So if I have a lot of discards in my hand and someone discards a tile that I could call, even though I have a gap or weaknesses, or maybe I'm in between too many hands, I probably would not call that tile. I would wait until I have a stronger hand. That would be a low risk decision. Claiming a discard, if you have gaps, that would be risky. So you wouldn't want to do that if you're an underdog. You would want to wait until you have a stronger hand. And I'm sure that we're going to have a lot of opportunity to talk through decision making, and I will explain the positions, underdog, contender, front runner, and explain when to take risk and when not to once we get to the gameplay with commentary. But yes, thank you for asking that question. Here's another example, consecutive run 2-2, 1-2.34 crack. This would be the, let me see. Now, hold on one second. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is, where did this come from? 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. This is a 7th hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Pung, pung, kong, kong. So ignore that number up there. This is the 7th hand down. Pung, pung, kong, kong. This is the second option. And we have 3 clear discards, but we have joker bait, which incidentally is a hit or miss joker tactic if you don't know about it. Basically, you keep a pair that you don't need, and in the middle of the game, you discard one of those tiles to try to coax an exposure with a joker from an opponent, and then on your next turn, you do the exchange. But it is a hit or miss tactic. And incidentally, we're testing this, we're documenting the results, and right now, the success rate is about 6%, which is abysmal. So joker bait does not, even though it feels really great when it works, and it can work depending on what happens at the table, you don't want to rely on it. So this particular hand development through the Charleston is good because of the type of hand that they're playing, not because they have joker bait, although the joker bait could be a ray of sunshine depending on what happens at the table. What's good about this hand is they're playing a hand of least resistance, which is a 2 pung, 2 kong hand. The shape could be pung, pung, kong, kong, or it could be like the first wind hand, kong, pung, pung, kong. Doesn't matter where the pungs and kongs are, but any hand with 2 pungs and 2 kongs, you can use any number of jokers. So it's a relatively indestructible hand. This player with a joker could pung the 1-2 and kong either the 3 or 4. They need only one good pick to help them with their 3-4, and they could win the game. So it's the type of hand that could also make you a front runner if you have multiples with each block, like in this example. So considering this idea of the phases of the game, the Charleston, that is where the transformation happens. And also that is where mistakes can happen, which is fine, because during the play, that is where you can recover with your decisions pick by pick. And when discards go down that you can claim, you could potentially recover from any mistakes or sacrifices that you have had to make during the Charleston. So we're going to now go play at I Love Mahj, and I'll talk through all those examples that we just covered here. I hope you found that helpful. And let me see here. I need to just do something really quick here. 1, 2, 3, 7. Okay. Here we go. I just wanted to make a couple of quick corrections with this slideshow so that it's not confusing for the future. Okay, so there we go. Thank you for your patience. And that's ready to go. All right, now I am going to share my screen and we're going to go to I Love Mahj. Oh, thank you, Denise. I appreciate that. Okay, so here's I Love Mahj. This is a fantastic platform, especially if you're fairly new to the game. Whether you're a beginner or an intermediate player, even experienced players can benefit from playing here because they have robots with varying degrees of intelligence that can challenge you, but they also have an exercise room that can help you build your skills. So what I'd like to do is a little bit of Charleston practice, which is the second bullet. They have make a hand where you can practice with each hand on the card, pulling it together with the tiles visually. You could also do a few other gamification skill builders to help you learn the card as well. We're, for the sake of time, just going to do Charleston practice. So I'm going to go straight into here so we can hit the ground running on examples from the presentation. So what I want to focus on first is we're going to look at how to leverage those tactics that I shared, optimize, maximize, and streamline. And then we're going to look at our position at the end of the Charleston. And if we had to sacrifice any tiles to pass safely, or if we made a mistake, we're going to talk about how to recover during the pick and discard phase of the game. So that is the focus for the rest of the session. In this case, we have one pair. I call that a multiple because it could be pair pung kong. It's not always going to be a pair. In this case, it is. So we have a little multiple pair. So whatever we do, we're going to target that multiple because American Mah Jongg is a game of multiples. Every hand on the card uses a multiple. So if you start there, you're going to set yourself up for success. Target the multiple. This would be optimizing. We're going to look at the rest of our tiles and we're going to keep the tiles that can be used with the 5 dot to optimize hand development. So with the rest of our tiles, we've got 4s. We could do some kind of a 4-5 hand. We do have a 6 as well. We could maybe do 4, 5, 6, 7 of some kind. Usually if I'm in between, or if I have mixed suits, I'll pick 4 numbers in a range around the multiple. So a 2, 3, 4, 5 might even work. Or 4, 5, 6, 7. That would be 4 numbers around the multiple. And that leaves us with tiles we can pass. I wouldn't pass a flower, so I would keep that. And then the discards we have would be west, south, green, 1, 8 dot. With the west and the south, I don't think I would use them. I would focus on the number tiles because there are so many more number tiles with only a single west, single south. We don't have news, which is a block of 4. That would be a good block to leverage. But in this case, we only have half and they're singles. So I would instead, I would break that up. So I would pass the west, the green, and maybe the 1. So we have a wind, a dragon, and a number tile. That's a great pass. That is the lowest risk pass you can do. Maybe even if we, for example, passed, actually with what we have, I think that's probably the best pass we can do. You just want to mitigate the risk. Every pass is going to have some risk to it. For example, if somebody's playing news with dragons, second hand from the bottom, they could use those tiles. But that's 1 out of all the hands on the card. What are the chances that one of your 3 opponents is going to play that exact hand? Probably slim. So we're going to pass those 3 and focus on 4, 5, 6, 7 at the moment. If we get 3s, maybe we can play 3, 4, 5, 6. And we don't even need to look at the card because we've got lots of discards. You can just gather. We're playing the consecutive category probably. So at least we know that. We're going to keep consecutive tiles, 1 4, 5, 6, 7 for now. So let's see what we get. We've got a 6. That would be a keeper. I would stick with this idea of breaking up the wind because we have an east and a south, not helpful without a northwest, which we just let go of. But we do have lots of options with 4, 5, 6, 7 in here. This 2 crack is an outlier. That probably will go unless we get a 3. Even if we do get a 3, I'd still say that could go. But let's just see what we get. Another 6. So we have 5, 6. 5, 6. So the trend is going to the bigger numbers. So this 2 would go because we're not going to be able to use a 2 with a 5, 6. So we can let that go. Here we have an 8, 9. 8, 9 in one suit is a little bit risky. Instead of doing that, I would let the 2 go. So that is probably, in my opinion, the lowest risk pass you can do. A little number in one suit, a big number in a second suit, even odd with a wind or dragon. That is an excellent pass right there. Our opponent may be able to keep one of these tiles. Maybe 2 if they're playing winds with, let's say, like numbers, or maybe that third hand down. There's some chance that they could potentially use the wind and one of these numbers. So let's see what we can do here. We have a dragon. We might be able to use that. I would definitely keep going. We have a 1, 9, 8. That's a little bit risky. Here we have 5, 6 dot. I think we could probably make that better by letting the dragon go. Instead of passing 8, 9, that would work for consecutive run. This is a really good pass too. 1.8 dragon. Okay, so here's another 6. So this trend is continuing upwards. We have still a lot of 4, 5, 6, 7. Now we also have 8, 9. If you can see here, 5 through 9, but we have no 7. That is a gap. That is an example of a gap hand. We could maybe use this joker for that 7, but that's not ideal. You want to try to find an option that will not have a gap. For example, we could play, let's see, 5, 6, 4, 4, 6, 6, 7. I wouldn't even venture to pick a hand. We have one clear discard, so now we need to whittle out the rest of these tiles. I would let the 9 go because we have no 7. And then I probably would let one of the 4s go. Maybe the 4 bam. Actually, we could even do one of each suit. That would be a great pass right there. One of each suit. We still have 4, 5, 6, 7 or 5, 6, 7, 8. This 8 dot though is isolated. It's disconnected because we have no 7. So probably the 8 dot will go. The 4 bam probably will also go. Okay, so now we have a 4 dot. So we have 4, 5, 6. Maybe we could even use that dragon for the second hand down, but that comes with an if. When you're playing this game and this word if comes through your mind, let it go. Because if is would be a long shot. If we get a 3 or a 7, we can use that dragon. That would be a long shot. So anytime you hear yourself say if, consider that a long shot. Go for something that's not a long shot. So here we have a 9 bam. We don't need that at all. We have 5, 6 pairs. That's what we want to target. I would probably let the 8 dot go. And then I would probably let this 4 bam go because it's not really connected. If we had a 5 bam, I would consider keeping it because we would have 4, 5, 6. but a 4 to a 6 with a 5-6 pair, that 4 bam, not helpful. All right, so now we have another multiple, the green dragon. Anytime you develop a new multiple, consider your options. The second hand down, we could play, but we have a gap. We don't have a 3 and we don't have a 7. So I probably wouldn't give it too much thought. I would still keep that pair, probably. Let's just see what else we have. Here's a 5-6 dot with a 7-8 crack. This would fit for the second hand from the bottom on the right. No gaps. 5, 6, 7, 8, no gaps. 5-6 dot, 7-8 crack. That is a hand of least resistance, relatively indestructible. So probably I would play that hand. Now we do have a flower with 4, 5, 6. We could potentially play the third hand down on the left. 4, 5, 6 in dots with flowers. So I would probably keep the flower. In this case, we have 2 6s and a red dragon, and we're at the optional across. Here, I probably would pass 2. We could pass 2 6s and a red and pass fully, but that would be very risky because we'd be passing like numbers, which is almost as risky as passing a pair, in my opinion. I wouldn't do it. We could also break up the dragon and pass a 6 with 2 dragons. Passing 2 dragons, likewise 2 wins, is almost as risky as passing like numbers, which is almost as risky as passing a pair. So I typically don't do it unless I have a very strong hand, which we don't. So I would not do that. Therefore, I would pass 2. So you want to mitigate the risk and still give yourself options. But we want to get as many tiles as we can. This is our last chance to get keepers. So let's pass 6 bam with a red dragon. The other thing I was considering, though, let's see here. I was thinking if we were to get a 5 bam, we could play 5, 6 dot, 5, 6 bam, 7 crack pair concealed. But remember what I said about that word if? I use that word if. If we were to get a 5 bam, that would be a long shot. So we shouldn't even consider it because we have options here with no gaps at all. We could play the third hand down in one suit, or we could play the second hand from the bottom in mixed suits. No gaps for either option. So that long shot concealed hand or the long shot second hand down, they're just at the bottom rung of our options. So let's keep that 5 or that 6 bam just to see what happens, and we'll let the 6 crack go. Now this right here is a little bit risky because they correspond, but I think we can take that risk. We ended up with a 7 crack pair now, right there. With a 7 crack pair, I would focus on 5, 6, 7, 8, pung, pung, kong, kong. Use the 8 or the dragons as joker bait later. And then that would mean we have 4 discards with joker bait, which is hit or miss, only 6% success rate. So I would say because we have all these discards, we're an underdog for this particular hand. But we have a hand with no gaps and 3 multiples plus a joker. We could pung the 5, pung the 6, kong the 7, and build on the 8. So I think the result was really good. And there's a little bit of a chance to get a joker with the dragon. So does anybody have any questions about the hand development tactics that I shared? Optimize, maximize, streamline. In this case, we used all 3. So we had this would be an example of a power play. We targeted the 5 dot. We maximized by keeping those consecutive tiles, and we stayed in consecutive throughout. And then we also streamlined because we were in consecutive run. All 3 of those tactics make for a power play. So we have a pretty good chance of winning, even though we're an underdog. We could pung and kong 3 of 4 blocks. That's why it's such a powerful concept to stack the tactics. And then we have joker bait there. But I would say because we have 4 discards with joker bait, I would say we're probably an underdog until we see if anybody's playing with dragons. If somebody's playing with dragons and we discard that dragon at the right time, we could get a joker and bump up to contender or maybe even front runner, depending on what would happen at the table. Oh, thank you, Kathy. Okay, so now do we want to do another Charleston modeling or shall we play with robots? Shall we do one more? Put a 1 in the chat if you want to do one more Charleston modeling, or put a 2 in the chat if you want to. Okay, Kathy says Charleston. Do one more Charleston. Okay, so we're going to do this again. Then we got 2 people saying do the Charleston again. So here we go. New Charleston. So we have, oh, this will be interesting. We have a joker, a flower, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, and bams. Let me turn on my light here real quick. It's a wintry day here. Let's see. Missy says you've been using these much more often. You have a question on last right or courtesy. Do you pass 2 so you don't break up your unneeded pair? The unneeded pair was a long shot, so I kept it. Plus, I didn't want to pass 2 dragons. That's why I kept it as well. So not only was it a long shot option, but it also kept me from passing 2 dragons, which is very risky. Okay, so I hope that helps, Misty. Okay, so let's see. I'll start over. Joker, flower, 2, 3, 4, 8, 9, and bams with a pair of 3s, 5, 6, 9, crack, pair 6, and an 8, 9 in dots. If these were your tiles, what category would you focus on? There's a couple ways we could go here. Hi, Wes. Wes says 369. Anybody else want to opine? $369 was my initial thought. Misty says consecutive. That was my second thought. So we have 3s and 6s. That clearly points to 369. If we were to play 369, we would hold the 9s as well. 369. That uses 7 tiles. 7 tiles, maybe even 8, because we have a couple hands with flowers in it. So with that, we could also maybe play 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's 3, 4, bam, 5, 6, crack. Hand of least resistance, 3, 4, 5, 6. Both of these options would use 3 and 6. The consecutive, though, 3, 4, 5, 6, second hand from the bottom on the right, only uses 4 tiles. So 369 uses more of our tiles. That would allow us to optimize and maximize if we played 369, because look at what we're left with. Excuse me. Yeah, Wes says 3, 4, 5, 6, and Kathy says 369. I think I would do in this case 369 because we have more tiles to work with. Optimize and maximize. The primary reason is because of what we're going to pass. Here we have 288. 288. I would not do that. That would be very risky. Passing like numbers is almost as risky as passing a pair. So I wouldn't do that. That would force me to let something go. We could let the flower go, but that is also risky. I would not pass a flower unless I have a really strong hand, and we don't. So I wouldn't do that either. Instead, I would give up the consecutive tiles because we only have 4 to use. 3, 4, bam, 5, 6, crack, only 4 tiles, as opposed to 7 or 8 with 369. So that would drive me to pass the 5. So optimize, maximize, mitigate risk. We have no keepers here. We got in an 8 and a 4 dot. We're focused on 3, 6, 9 of some kind, but I don't know if you notice here with the 8s, we have 6, 8, 9. If we were to get 7s, we could maybe streamline and do 6, 7, 8, 9. But I said if, that would be a long shot. So we're not even going to consider it. We're just going to let it go because we have options with 3, 6, 9. And incidentally, I wouldn't pick a hand, even though we could. We could, for example, play this third hand down on the right. 3 bam, 6 crack, 9 dot, no gaps. There's potential there. I still would not do that though. I would gather because we've got 5 discards, maybe even the flower. So I would pass 1, 4, 8. Maybe, yeah, it doesn't really matter which one. It's, although we could pass the 4 bam and not be left with a 4 bam 8 for the next pass if we get keepers. At least we have evens and 2 suits left over for the next pass. So if you can, think about the next pass and mitigate the risk in the next pass based on the tiles that you have. So passing 1, 8 crack with a 4 bam, that's okay. And we're left with a 4, 8 in 2 suits. We got a keeper here, 9 dot. We also got dragons, 2 dragons. We could play like numbers with 9s maybe, but we'd have to throw away 2 pair, 3 bam, 6 crack. I would rather target the multiples than focus on pretty dragons. So we're going to let them go. And this multiple that developed, 3 bam, 6 crack, 9 dot, third hand down on the right, looks pretty strong. Let's pass these 3. A pair showed up. Okay, here's a 3 crack too. So we're going to definitely keep going here. Let's see, Misty's asking, do you consider suits in potential hand when passing? Keep 8 crack to match pair 6 crack. Well, no, because the 8 is not in our category. We're playing 3, 6, 9 and an 8 is not useful. So I would let it go because we have no 7. Now, if we had a 7, I would consider playing consecutive run and do 6, 7, 8, 9, but we don't have a 7. So I would let the 8 go. It's useless without a 7. In this case, we have 3, 6, 9, a strong representation of 3, 6, 9. We're actually at a place where we need to make a choice. We have 1 clear discard with a pair of dragons, and we have 3 multiples, 3 bam, 6 crack, 9 dot. I would focus on that third hand down, and we need to pick a hand because we have a 1 clear discard and a pair, which I don't pass pairs ever. Well, I shouldn't say ever, because if I'm playing a pair hand and I only have 2 discards and it's a pair, I might go for it. It's probably a rarity, but it never say never, basically. Yeah, that's the hand. Third one down on the right, 3, 6, 9. I would keep going. And I would break up the dragon and let maybe the 9 crack go. And then these would go. And I would focus on 3, 6, 9 in 1 suit, or 3, 6, 9 in mixed suits. Wait, what? You only have the 9 dots? I'm confused. We have 3, 6, 9. You know what else we could do? We could do 3, 6, 9 with 9s. 3, 6, 9 crack with 9 bam, 9 dot. Easy to switch to 9 on the top hand. Well, we only have 1 pair of 6s though. That would be a gap hand because we have no other 6. So I wouldn't even consider that first hand. There's a gap. we have two options with no gaps. We have the second hand down, which is weak because we need a pair of flowers and we need pungs of nines. We could also play the third hand down and we need a flower, and then we could Kong. So I would say that the third hand down is the strongest option. So I would let the 3 crack go probably. Or actually, we could keep the 3 and let the 9 crack go, because if we decide to play that second hand down and we get the 9, we could recover with jokers later. The 3 crack is a single, so maybe we keep that 3 crack because it is a single tile. We'll see. Okay, so let's do 1 bam. Yep, that's a if. That's a long shot. That would be a plan, a long shot. We have a hand that is not a long shot, the third hand down. So we're focused on a hand with no gaps and strength, 3 pairs, but there's another long shot option that we could do later if it shows up. But it's a long shot because we use the word if. So I would focus on the one where I didn't use the word if, which is the third hand down. Okay, so let's see what we get. No keepers. So let's pass 1 8 with the dragon. We'll give the dragon to somebody else. Okay, no keepers, so we can pass those 3. A 7 crack did come in, 6 7. Let's just see what happens with it. We got in another 7. Here's a 3 crack. And we have 5 7 9 in here. Look, there's 5 7 9. Because the 3 bam and the 6 crack are pairs, though, that 5 7 9 option is super weak. I wouldn't do that. I would keep those. So we have 3 6 crack. We didn't get the 9. So probably what I would do is give up on one of those 3s, because I would focus on the multiples, which would be 3 bam, 6 crack, 9 dot. 3 multiples. Maybe even, let's see, the 9 dot or 9 bam. That would only be helpful if the 9 crack comes back. And we don't know. That would be an if. That would be a long shot. This 3 crack is really not helpful in our case because we have no other 6. We could maybe play that first hand under 3 6 9, but we have no 6 dot or 6 bam. 3 6 crack with a 9 dot, but we have no other 6. So that 3 could allow us to do a full pass. We could do 3 5 7. I think I would risk it. Let's see what we get. We got the 9 crack back. So now, even though we sacrificed the 9 crack earlier, we recovered. So we could still play the third or the second hand down. Second hand down, 3 6 9, single pair pung with pungs of 9s. Or we could play 3 bam, 6 crack, 9 dot, third hand down. So we have 2 different hands, both with no gaps, and 3 discards. Because we have options, 2 different hands, I would say, even with 3 discards here, I would say we're probably an underdog. Because if we played, let's say, the second hand down, we would have 3 discards with joker bait. That would be 5 discards. That makes us an underdog. If we played 3 6 9 mixed suit Kongs, we would have 6 discards. Total complete underdog. I would probably give up on that hand, that third hand. I think I would probably focus on the second hand down. I think that might be stronger. We have our single. We need a flower. That's a weakness. We could pung the 9, pung one of the other 9s. use the 3 as joker bait. I probably wouldn't pick a hand though. I would just discard these and see what comes in. So you really don't have to pick a hand until you run out of discards. So I would just keep all 3, 6, 9 and see what happens. We would be an underdog though, because we have a lot of discards. All right, so let's go ahead and play with robots now. And we'll see how it goes with the full game. And I'll still talk through hand development tactics and how to recover, ways to recover, our position. We can talk about our position, underdog, contender, and front runner, and talk about the kind of approach that you need to take in the game after the Charleston based on your position, which is what Kathleen was bringing up during the Charleston modeling. Okay, so let's see what we can do. Charleston. So we have here South, Red Dragon, 6 band, 3, 5, 6 in cracks with a pair of 5s, 1, 2, 5, 6, 7, 8 in dots with a pair of 1s. If these were your tiles, which category would you focus on? I know what I would do already. Right now, I know immediately what I would focus on. So tell me what category you would focus on. You can really simplify your decision making by thinking about these hand development tactics. Optimize, maximize, streamline. Wes says consecutive. Misty says consecutive. That's what I would do. Consecutive run. 5, 6, 7, 8. So this 1 dot pair would go away. Some people might think, oh, I'll play 1, 3, 3, 5. But if we were to play 1, 3, 3, 5, because of the pair there, that would be 5 tiles, and all these other tiles would probably go away. Maybe we would keep that 5 dot. But look at all these discards. We would have only 6 keepers. Instead, if we focus on 5, 6, 7, 8, look at all the tiles we have to work with. Focus on fodder. We would have 8 tiles. 5, 6, 7, 8. 4 numbers in a range around the pair. In this case, 5 crack. Yeah, I would streamline, but I wouldn't pick a hand. We're gonna have a power play here because we're optimized by targeting the multiple. We're maximized by using most of our tiles, and we're streamlined because we're focused on consecutive run. But we're not going to pick a hand. We're not even going to think about what hand to play. We have way too many discards right now. If you were to focus on what hand to play right now, it would be in vain because we have way too many discards. There are a lot of hands we could play, but it's going to change with probably this first pass, if not the first, the second. So why spend that time trying to look at the card and figure out what to play when it really doesn't matter? What you want to do is focus on gathering tiles. You want to gather tiles to help you with whatever category you're focused on. In this case, consecutive run. So we're going to pass the South, the red, and I would break up the 1 because I know we're not going to use it. We're not going to use the 1. We're going to focus on consecutive run because we have a lot of options. And I don't want to be stuck with a pair that we're not going to use. So let's go. 1, 3 would be just as fine. A wind, a dragon, and a 1. It's, I think, 6 1, half dozen the other. I suppose if let's say if I were to maybe think a pass ahead, a 1, 2, 3, that would be a terrible pass. So if we wanted to think a pass ahead, I would probably keep the South and pass the 3, but we're still left with a 1, 2. So it doesn't really, I think mitigating one pass in this case is a fine way to go, and just wait to see what you get with the next one, because that mitigating the risk in the next pass had no effect. it's still going to be nearly as risky. 1, 2, and I wouldn't pass a 1, 2 and 1 suit, and I wouldn't keep the pair because that would be risky too. And even passing a 2, 3 red would be risky. So I would probably rather break up the 1 as the first go and see what happens. Okay, so there's a 7 and we have a 5. Also, here's a 4. We have 4, 5, 6. And incidentally, here's a 3. We have a 3, 4, 5, 6. But we picked up a pair of 7s here. Anytime you form a new multiple, reassess. In this case, we're reassessing the range that we're working with. We could do 3, 4, 5, 6. We could do 4, 5, 6, 7. We could also do 5, 6, 7, 8. Because we have a pair of 7s in here now, I would let the 3 go. So this 3 will go. Maybe do 1, 3, and then let's see what we have left here. We have 5 crack, 7 dot. Well, the thing about the 8 dot, I don't think I would let the 8 dot go because we could do 5, 6 crack, 7, 8 dot. We could even do 4 crack, 5, 6, 7 dot. Either way, we didn't use the 5 dot. So I wouldn't let the 5 dot go here. Now that is a little bit risky, 1, 3, 5. So probably I'd keep the 1 and let the 2 go. So we're in between. We could maybe do the concealed hand, 5, 6 bam, 5, 6 crack, 7 dot pair. We have a couple of ways we can go. 3 ways. We could play the second hand from the bottom in mixed suits, and we could also play the concealed hand. So here's a 6 dot now. So here, because we have a new multiple, I would reassess again. We have 4, 5 crack, 6, 7 dot, 3 multiples, no gaps. So that's probably what I would focus on. We really don't have to pick a hand though, because we've got discards. So we're still going to just continue to gather. Okay, so we didn't get any keepers. We can keep going. We have clear discards here. And a 1, 3 south, that's a little bit risky. We have still 5, 6 bam, 5, 6 crack, 7 dot pair concealed, but we would have to throw away a pair. I wouldn't do that. I would leverage the pair. So I probably wouldn't play the concealed hand. I would probably play 4, 5 crack, 6, 7 dot. That would leverage every multiple. So I would probably keep the 3 and let the 8 go. There's the 4. 4, 5 crack, 6, 7 dot, no gaps. I would probably pass 8, 5, red. Maybe, let's see, 6 bam, 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, pung pung kong kong there. I think we could maybe do 3 dot, 6 bam red. That would leave us with 6, 7, 5. Let's do that. Okay, so now we have, look at all the 6, 7, 8 we have in here. Let's just reassess. 5, 6, 8 in bams, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in cracks, pair 4, pair 5, and then 6, 7 in dots. We still have 4, 5, 6, 7. I would focus on that. 4, 5, 6, 7. So then I would probably pass 5, 7, 8. Focus on pung pung, kong kong, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, we have a 7 in there, and we have tiles we can pass. We have 4, 5, 6, 7 in one suit now, but I would still focus on these multiples because 4, 5 cracks, 6, 7 dot, no gaps, all multiples. I would give up on 6, 7, 8 in cracks, but we can pass fully to West 6. Okay, so now tiles we can pass here. We do have a little potential for the fourth hand down, single pair Kong, 5, 6, 7 in dots, 5, 6, 7 in cracks. We'd have to throw away a 5 crack though. Here's a 3, 4, 5. We could do 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot. Regardless of how we spin this, the 9 bam is a clear discard. So I would say we're probably an underdog, because if we focus on 5, 6, 7, 8, we would have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 discards. So we're playing a hand with no gaps, and it's a hand of least resistance, but we have 6 discards. So we have a ways to go until we claim discards to help us expedite hand development. We could pung the 4 and the 5. So that would get us a little closer. We might be able to get to contender. We'll see. Right now, we have a 9 bam we don't need. So let's just see what happens. A 2. So now we have 2 through 8. That is way too long of a range. Target your multiples, 4, 5, 6, 7. That 2 will never be used with the 7 in a consecutive run. So that would go now. Okay, here we go. 4 bam, that is in our range, but there's not much we can do with that at the moment. I would just let it go. There's a keeper. 4, 5 crack, 6, 7 dot. 3, 4 crack, 5, 6 dot. Let's let this 8 crack go. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 7. I'd say the 3 crack probably should go next. Oh, we don't need 9s at all. Even though there's a little bit of 5, 7, 9 in there, we have a pung of 4s. If you have a pung, that weighs heavier than pairs. So whatever we do, I would leverage the 4. That would be a good next discard. So the 3 crack and the 7 crack can go, and the 5 dot. 9 crack, I wouldn't be distracted by a pretty suit like that. Let's let this 3 go. Joker. Okay, let's let the 9 go. There are 2 jokers open. So I'm just going to pause here for a second. Let's count our discards. We're at 74 tiles remaining, and we have 4 discards. So we just entered the middle game, because the first, let's say 6 discards, 6 or 7 discards, that's the begin game. And we were an underdog. But I would say we could consider ourselves to be a contender at this point, because we're just now entering the middle game, and we have only 4 discards. Plus we're playing a hand of least resistance with all multiples and now a joker. So I would say we bumped up to contender. We still have work to do. We can pung the 5. We can Kong either the 6 or the 7, but we need one more good pick. If we get one more good pick, I would say we could bump up to front runner. Right now, there are 2 jokers open for exchange, the 9 crack and the 2 dot. So let's just see what happens. We went from underdog to now contender because we got a keeper, the 4 crack, and we got a joker. So let's let this dragon go. That's our first tile, and I would take it. We have a hand with no gaps. If we're a contender, I'd say we can take the risk of losing that joker. If we were still an underdog, I'd probably let it go. But we're not anymore. We're a contender at this point. So I'm going to call it. And now we'll discard the 5. And we have only 2 discards. And that was just after 1 round of picks. So I would say that we're still probably a contender because we can't do anything about that 6 dot. So let's just wait and see if we get a keeper to help us with the 6 dot. And at that point, we could be a front runner and run this race regardless of risk. Right now, there's still a little bit of risk. So we need to take a moderate approach with risk. Somebody won. Stinking robots. Like numbers. All right. Well, we got fairly close. 2 discards, and we were a contender, but this player was a front runner. They had a good Charleston, apparently. All right. So here we go. We're going to do another game. Okay. So this is an interesting situation here. We have multiples at the moment that don't work together. 1 dot, 4 dot. If these were your tiles, what category would you focus on? If these were my tiles, I'd play consecutive run 4, 5, 6. Usually with consecutive run, especially if we have, someone said like numbers. Are you thinking like numbers with 4s? Why like numbers? I don't think I would play like numbers here because we do have 3 5s, but we have only 2 4s and 2 1s. Either way, we really don't have to pick even a category because we've got discards. West green 8. I would play 4, 5, 6 and let the 1s go. Like numbers with 4s or 1s with, and what, you would keep the dragon? Without any other dragon, I probably wouldn't even consider that. And really the only like number strength we have in here at the moment, because we have no other dragons and no flowers, would be for either 4s or 1s with the west, but we have a gap, no flower. I wouldn't even think about like numbers. I would focus on consecutive run because we can optimize, maximize, and streamline 4, 5, 6 of some kind. There's the 6. So I would break out these 1s. So 1, let's see, 9, 8. That's a little bit risky. I'm going to separate these with this 5 band. 4, 5, 6 of some kind. But this 8, 9 is better than passing 2 1s. So I would do it. Okay, there's a 5 and a 4. 4, 5, 6 of some kind. Here we have a 9 and a 1. Now we need to dig into our keepers. We have 4, 5, 6 crack, 4, 5 dot, 5 bam. This 5 bam, it's a bit of an outlier at the moment. And I wouldn't pick a hand. I would still keep passing because these multiples are not quite gelling yet. We need more fodder. Okay, so here's a 7 south with a 9 dot. I would just keep going. 1 can go, south can go, and then maybe the 9 dot could go. Okay, here's a 3 dot. That's a little more fodder there. 9 crack can go. 3, 4. We have a hand in here. 4, 5, 6 is developing. Yep. We could do 3, 4 dot, 5, 6 crack. Pung, pung, kong, kong again. 3, 4, 5, 6. We could even maybe do single pair kong, 3, 4, 5. This right here would be very risky. But if we want to focus on our own hand development, I think I would still mitigate the risk. I think I would let the 5 dot go and mitigate the risk. because we do have a hand in here with no gaps. 3, 4 dot, 5, 6 crack. 3, 4, 5, 6. Second hand from the bottom on the right. Okay, so here's a 2, 4. You want to keep numbers in a range around your multiples. Our multiples are 4, 5, 6. The 7, the 1, and this 2, they're not going to work at all. The 2 crack won't work without a 3 crack in this case. I would still say 3, 4, 5, 6 is the strongest pattern here. Okay, and we have no keepers, so we're going to pass 3. And probably, let's see, I would probably let that 4 bam go instead of passing 8, 9. Okay, so we have a hand with no gaps, 3, 4, 5, 6, pung, pung, kong, kong. This is a similar result that we had last time. We have 4 discards with joker bait, so we're going to be an underdog. Even though we have a hand with no gaps, let's just see what happens. No. 8 crack pair. Anytime you develop a new multiple, reassess. Let's let this 1 crack go. We have some even potential in here, but we have no 2. And somebody kept that 2 crack that we let go of. There is a little bit of evens in here if we get a 2, but that would be a long shot because we said if. So I wouldn't put it too much focus on that. Okay, 5, that's in our range. 5, 6, 4, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that 5 we could keep for a little bit just to see if it comes in handy. At the moment, I don't think so. So everything's in order here. 3, 4 dot, 4, 5, 6 crack, 8 crack. Probably with all these 4s and the 5, I don't know yet if that 8 crack is going to be helpful. Just kind of happened into our world there. We do have 5, 6, 7, 8 developing. 3, 4 dot, 4, 5, 6, 8, no 7 crack. 7, 8 dot, 7, 8 bam. We could do 5, 6 crack, 7, 8. Let's let the 5 bam go. So now we have to make a choice. Do we want to pung? We're an underdog. This is an example of taking low risk. I would say no, we don't take that because we have a hand we could play, but it's weak. And if we were to play that second hand from the bottom, we would need to calm, not pung. Even though we could maybe pung 5, 6 and use the 7, 8, we'd have to throw away 2 pair. I would rather wait. I would rather wait and see what comes in because we have strength elsewhere. So I would ignore that to take that low risk approach because we're an underdog. Okay, here's a 6 dot. This is where this trend is forming, where we see a lot of evens in here, but we have a gap, no 2. With a gap, that is on the very low end of our options. It's almost like the word if. If would be a long shot and a gap hand would be a long shot. So they should be on the very low end of our options. So I wouldn't focus on that at all, really. I'd probably even let that 6 go. There's a 4 crack, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, 3, 4, 4, 5. Let's let the 8 bam go. I would still continue to gather and not make any choices yet. The 4 crack pung would be helpful if we get a 7 crack. At the moment, it's not helpful. Joker exchange. I'm thinking that 8 crack needs to go. So we have 4 crack, 6 crack, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4 dot, 5, 6 crack. We have a pair we don't need, so I wouldn't pick a hand. That's our joker bait. Nobody wanted it, so these are discards. Okay, now that could be interesting. Let's just keep it for a bit. Oh, I was just going to say if we get a 3 crack, but now there's 2 out. I would let that go. 7 crack Kong with jokers. Okay, now here we need to make a choice. Because there's a 7 crack Kong, even with jokers over there, I wouldn't hold out for a gap hand, 4, 5, 6, 7 in one suit. What I would probably do is play 4, 5, 6, 7, pung, pung, Kong, Kong in dots and cracks. 3 dot we need for a pung. This is the first one, the first 3. Because our hand is weak, I would let it go because we're still an underdog. So I would let this go. And if the next one goes down, then I would call because I don't want to use our only joker right now. I want to wait. Just because another thing that could happen is be a long shot because we have a gap. But if we get a flower, we could play 4, 5, 6 flower and leverage that pung. So I would let this go. Let's let the 7 go. Yeah, Kathy, you're not alone because there's prescribed hands on the card. The urge, there's going to be an urge inside to pick a hand. You're going to feel that, but you got to let it go for a time because you want to wait until you have a strong hand. You want to wait until you have no gaps and few weaknesses and just hold off, gather. Let your focus be gathering tiles that you can use. But you got to be mindful of what's going down at the same time. Okay, now here, I would call this because we don't have to use a joker. We have a hand with no gaps, 3, 4, 5, 6, 3, 4 dot, 5, 6 crack. We could call that for a pure pung. We wouldn't have to sacrifice a joker. I would call it. And I would let this white dragon go. So this 4 crack can go. We never got a flower. We just need to move on. You don't want to straddle options too long. We're going forward with our strongest option. Let's let the 4 crack go. Nobody wanted it. Ooh, we don't want to hold dragons. Breaking up the 4s, it's a little painful, but that 4 crack pung is just not useful with our other multiples. You want to go with the most of your multiples, and that would be 3, 4, 5, 6 in dots and cracks because we had no 7 and the 3 cracks went down. So that's why we had to give it up. And because there are 7s over here, this 5 dot is not helpful either. We could maybe do 4 dot, 5 dot, 6, 7, but we have no 7s. If we did get a 7, I'd rather take the joker. Okay, now here we need to make a choice. We could Kong, and I think we should. It's a little bit risky, but if we don't Kong now, we're going to need a joker later. We're going to commit to this hand either way. And because this opportunity is presenting itself, I would take it. We're playing a hand of least resistance. We can recover with jokers because we can use any number of jokers. I would call and Kong. Okay, so now let's throw the 5. Oh, 5. I'm going to put this 3 dot here. So 6 crack, 3 dot, those are keepers. The 4 crack is a discard and the 8 crack is a discard. Okay, we don't need south. Okay, 3 flowers and a joker. 3 bam is right here. We are at 34 tiles. Let's hold that 3 bam because it's going to be safe later. Nobody wanted the 4s. Let's throw the 8. 6 bam right here. Let's go ahead and throw that. 5 dot, that should be safe. That's our tile, but we can't call it. We're going to need a joker. Oh, they got the flower. Joker. Nice. Oh, darn. All right, we got 2 away again. 3, 4, 5, 6. I think we came a long way. We were an underdog. So let's play again. Okay, here. Oh, this is a good one. We have a widespread. Widespread. I have a tip for you, but first I want to know if these were your tiles, what would you focus on? Which category would you pick? I know what I would do. Immediately, I know what I would do. Anybody want to even? Misty says evens. I knew you were going to say that, Misty. Okay, Karen says, given the white dragon and there are 2s and 4s, you might consider a year hand. That's a good idea. That could work as well. Evens, 2, 4, 6, 8. There's good potential there. I would say either evens or consecutive runs 6, 7, 8, 9. So let's check the maximize tactic. If we played evens, what would it look like? 2, 4, 6, 8, 4, 6, 2, 8, 4, 8. So that's 6 tiles towards evens. All numbers are represented. It's not gelling for me. So I would want to reassess with consecutive run. 6, 7, 8, 9. 5, 6, 7, 8. 4, 5, 6, 7. I would play consecutive run. 4, 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 8, 9. That is the beauty of consecutive run. Flexibility. We could do 4, 5, 6, 7, or 6, 7, 8, 9, or even 5, 6, 7, 8. Now the pass, this is going to be risky. So I would let something go. Maybe the 4 bam. We could still maybe, no. I don't think I would consider a year hand here because we have only 1, 2, and 2 4s. No flowers. 2 of those hands require flowers and we have none. We could maybe play the first hand, but we have only 1, 2, and we need 2. I would rather maximize and streamline. So we're using 2 tactics, maximize and streamline. Okay, so we did get a 4 in here. We let a 4 go. We should just keep it in mind. Let's pass. I would pass it though. I would still focus on 6, 7, 8, 9, 5, 6, 4 through 8. 4, 5, 6, 7, 5, 6, 7, 8, 6, 7, 8, 9. We have lots of options, but I wouldn't pick a range yet. I would continue to gather. Now we have a pair. We finally have a pair in here. So now we have some power to go with. Power to leverage, let's say it that way. 8 crack pair. We have 6, 7, 8 crack. 4, 5. Really, this 4 can probably go. 7, 8, 8, 9, 5. This 5 dot is kind of an outlier. I'm thinking 6, 7, 8, 9 of some kind. 4, 5, that's going to be super risky. 2, 5. Let's see, 6, 7, 8, 8, 9. I think I would pass the 6 band. We're going to sacrifice the 6 band because I don't want to pass another 2, and I don't want to pass a 4, 5 in one suit. 7, 8, 9, 8 crack 9, 5. Okay, we got to let something go. We're sacrificing tiles here. Here's a 9 dot. 8, 9. You know what I would consider here? A quint. South 8, 9, because now we have another pair in there. 9 dot pair. Here's 2, 3, 4. I would definitely continue, but I don't think I would pass 2, 3, 4. I think I would risk passing 2, 4, or maybe we could do 3, 4, 7, 8, 9, 7, 8, 9, 6. I'm thinking we should play the second quint. There's an option for wins, and we have tiles we can pass. 8 crack, south, tiles to pass. We're playing a quint, east 3, 8. Okay, and here we can pass 3. Okay, we have 4 discards and a hand with no gaps. I would say we are a contender because we've got 4 discards. So we can risk a Kong with a joker, for example. We could even quint the 9 or the 8. So let's see what happens. Okay, so Misty says north, south, 8, 9. I wouldn't play that though because we have a gap. No north. Now, if we draw a north, then yes, I would play that. But right now, that would be a long shot. And I suppose what we could do is define one of the, or earmark one of these jokers as a north and play north, south, 8, 9. I would rather go for the quint though. If we're going to leverage the jokers, I'd rather go big, but let's just see what happens. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Let's see what we get. If we get a north, I would definitely look at that third hand down. Okay. Now here's an option for us. 4 dot option. Oh, we don't need that. No, we don't need that. We really, no. Susan. No, no dragon. Okay, that is an option for us, and I would not call it because we have another way to go. So we're just going to let it go. If a 9 dot goes down, though, we should probably quint or let it go and defend Kong maybe. But at the moment, we have a gap for the north-south hand, and we have weakness with the quint. Okay, I would quint. We're going to quint. There goes the north. We can't call it. We're going to need another joker, which we just got. Now, if another 9 dot goes down, I would quint. Let's just see what happens. It looks like nobody's playing wins. Oh, the north came in. Nobody wants it. We'll just hold it. So that north-south hand could have come in, but we're already past the midpoint of the game. I don't regret making this decision, but the north-south hand could have worked. I would love to get a 9 dot or a joker. A south would be nice. Hmm. We need a keeper. Okay, we have 6 more picks. I'd say we're still a contender. Oh my gosh, look what came in, Misty. Okay, 3 more picks. Oh, come on. Like numbers with 9s. Yep. They could, let's see, hold on. They could be doing 369 number, the second from the bottom too. A north. Okay, so they have all switched to defense. So much for the jokers. Okay, so we did all right with that quint. I think north south with 8-9 could have worked as well. They are doing like numbers. I was thinking maybe they could be trying for 369 with dragons, but no. Okay, let's do. We'll squeeze in one more game, and then we're going to do a giveaway. I'm going to give away 5 channel memberships. Okay, so here we have 2 crack pair, 6 bam pair. We could try a quint again, or maybe we could try for evens, but that would be a long shot because we have no 8. Either way, we have, let's see, we could pass those tiles for now. Here's a 4, 2, 4, northwest, south. Let's let a west go here. Here's a 3, 2, 3, 4. I think what I would do, 2, 3, 4, 3, 4, 6. I think I would let the 2 go. Okay, so we have 369 in here. 369. It's not really working though very well. I would let it go. 3 now. 3, 5, 4, 5, 2, 3, 4, north, south. Even, well, I wouldn't consider multiplication because we have no flowers. No flowers, that would be a huge gap. I would not consider playing multiplication. Let's see, we have 3, 6. These wins really did not come in. I would give up on a quint, but what would we focus on? Probably 3, 4, 5, 6 of some kind. Let's see, 2, 3, 4, 5, no gaps though. 2, 3, 4, 5, no gaps. Let's just break it up and go for the no gap option. 2, 3, 4, 5, pung, pung, kong, kong. There's a 3. South, 3, 9. Let's see if we can set ourselves up for a better cross pass. North, south, 2, 3, 4. That could have been nice, but with only single north, south, that would be big. That would be very shallow, only because those north, south need to be kongs. I would rather focus on this run, 2, 3, 4, 5, and use jokers to help me get to that run. North, south would be specific. There's the 2, and I would pass. The tiles were there for it though. Okay, so we have 4 discards and a hand with no gaps. I would say we're a contender. We could pung the 2, pung the 3, kong the 4, build the 5. So we are a contender.
2, 6, 5.
If I have the pair and jokers in some of 4, 6, you do. Okay. I typically ignore gap hands if I have an option for a no gap hand. Here's 3, 4, 5, 6. We have 3, 5, 3, 4, 5. But that is stronger, and I would take it for a pure pung. 5 is out. I would call for a pung. We have a hand with no gaps, so we're going to push. Now here we have to decide, do we want to kong with 2 jokers? I would risk it because we're going to be left with only 1 discard. So I would do it. We need 1 good pick. I'm playing kind of fast because we just have a couple minutes and I want to do that giveaway. Joker. Okay, so we're ready now with a 4 crack. Pure calm. We don't need 1. Yeah, it came in. That's the beauty of a hand of least resistance. We're coming into the end game now. This is going to be risky. They have west south. I'm going to discard it. They're ready. I'm not surprised, and that's okay by me because we're also ready. And we were not quite into the end game yet. These robots, I don't know what the deal is with these robots, but they won every game. All right, so let's go on with our giveaway. You ready? Let's see here. I'm going to share my screen. Yes, I need to put this over here. Darn robots. yes. Okay, so let me go here. Okay, we are going to do this giveaway now. And you don't need to be present to win. If you win this giveaway, then you'll get a notification from YouTube. So as soon as this robot wins my discard, we'll do it. Okay. There's a delay. Yeah, the robots always win. They do. Well, not always, but a lot of times they do. Okay, so I'm going to click this. Let's just go full screen. Let's see here. Okay, here we go. Smith. Okay, John O'Reilly. Okay, I don't know who that next one is. JM and Madeline. There's our winners right there. All right, congratulations to the winners. I hope you enjoy the memberships, and we'll do another 5 membership giveaways on Friday night in the Simply Social Let's Play live stream. Does anybody have any, yes, congratulations. Does anybody have any questions about strategy? I'll just, since we have 7 minutes, we can just do a Q&A if you'd like for the next few minutes. Would anybody like to pose a challenge or ask any questions about rules or anything like that? We could kind of do an open forum for the next 5 minutes or so. You're welcome. Thanks for coming. If I don't see any questions, I'll go ahead and just sign off. Thank you so much for being here. Evelyn, thank you, and Wes for being moderators today for the live stream chat. I appreciate the help. We'll be back again tomorrow for the Obsessed Here live stream. I would love to do the training one-on-one sometime. That would be awesome, Misty. Just you could go to my website and click on my name, go to About Michelle, and then Lessons, I believe, and then you can see all about the kind of lessons I do. Okay, Denise says, in the Joker exchanges, who gets it first if there's an exposure? In the Joker exchanges, who gets it? It's in turn. So whoever's turn is next, if they have the natural tile to do the Joker exchange, they're the ones who gets it. Am I misunderstanding that? If 2 people call at the same time, this is probably the most yeah, let's get confirmation on the question though, Denise. Maybe rephrase your question. Questions about jokers are probably the most commonly asked questions, but also priority is another common question. FAQ, I guess you could say. Okay, the next in line, or the person, I know who is next gets it first. Okay. They can't, 2 people can't call it. Is it on the question about if two people want the same, let's see. Well, but Denise was asking something about jokers, though. Could you rephrase your question? Maybe that will help. Okay, you heard if there was one not next had an exposure, they get it. Okay, I think what you're talking about is the question on the back of the card. Let me know if I'm right. The question is, or the rule on the back of the card that has created a lot of questions is number 6. Okay. Number 5 and number 6 on the back of the card. So if you have your card, look at the back of the card. On the first panel, claiming a discard, number 5, when two players want the same tile, for 5 and 6 are the same situation. It's just that I'm going to word it a little differently, okay? When two players want the same tile, the same discard for the same reason, the player next in turn to the discarder gets the tile. Period. It has nothing to do with previous exposures. If the player who is next in turn is not paying attention, in that case, only one player claimed the discard and they expose tiles, and then the other player says, wait, I wanted that. It's too late. So there's an exception when the player next in turn is not paying attention. So just to confirm, when two players want the same discard for the same reason, the player next in turn gets the tile. Okay. If someone calls for Mahjong, it takes priority over someone who calls for an exchange. That's true. Mahjong trumps a call for exchange. You couldn't get a joker that way except a joker exchange. Yeah, you can only get a joker in an exchange if it's your turn. You can't just do an exchange at any time. You have to wait your turn. So if it's your turn, then you can do a joker exchange. There won't be multiple people wanting the joker in the same moment. It's not possible because we have to take turns. I'm not sure about that initial question, the way it was phrased. So we can disregard that because she confirmed that she's asking if two people want the same discard, who gets it and how do the exposures work into the scenario. The challenge with the way that it is worded on the card is that if a player had previous exposures, it almost sounds like if a player has exposures already on the rack, they get preference. But that's not at all how it works. It's just a badly worded rule. The rule is if two players claim a discard for the same reason, the player next in turn gets the tile, period. If one player claims a discard and makes an exposure or racks that tile, and then the player next in turn says, wait, I wanted that, it's too late. That was not a simultaneous claim because the player next in turn was not paying attention. In that case, they don't get preference. They lose out on the opportunity. Have I ever won an addition hand? Yes. I don't like them though. Let's see. Yeah, no worries, Denise. We figured it out. All right. Well, that takes us to the top of the hour. Thank you for the questions and for the responses. I appreciate it. Evelyn, I'm not sure. I do not understand the question the way you phrased it. Are you talking, you didn't understand? Oh, Misty says, how do you deal with people in person trying to distract other players? This would be more of your a choice of playing with like-minded people. If you're playing in a group with someone who is intentionally distracting people from playing their game, then you might consider looking for a different group, because that's going to become toxic. Can you give us an example, Misty, of what happened? That is a form of poor sportsmanship. How do you deal with people in person trying to distract other players? Can you give us an example? It's an interesting question, so I'm happy to stay on for a bit. If you want to stay on for this, please feel free. I'll sign off after this one question gets confirmed. If you can give us an example. Misty, are you still here? One person is always talking, her vacations and homes, and then, so just somebody constantly chatting. So it sounds like you play in a social group, a group where people socialize and chit chat. That is a group dynamic that you choose to be part of, or you find another group that plays more competitively, where they're not chit chatting so much and they're more focused on the game. If it's just for fun, then you let it go and you join in the chatter and just have a good time. But if it gets on your nerves, find another group, because if it continually gets on your nerves and it's affecting the way you enjoy the game, you need to find another group. Or, well, it sounds like the whole group is involved, so I would say find another group. Continue playing with them, but find another group that meets your needs in another way. Find a more competitive group, so you have a social group and a competitive group. And that way your needs for socialization are met and your needs for competitive play are met. Sorry, my throat is giving out on me. They're asking to wait every throw. It sounds like you would do well with a more competitive group. Rushing us, then having to wait for her. Is it one person that's causing all these problems? If it's one person causing these, driving the dynamic, chatting too much 1 minute, pushing people in the next minute, ended up moving to another group. Let's see, rushing us, then having to wait. Talking too much. Is it just one person? Oh, 10 minutes to take a turn? Oh my gosh. Everyone got tired of it. Yep. One or two, sometimes there's 8, 2 tables. But does everybody partake in that socialization, or is one person causing too much ruckus? That's the question. if everybody's involved in the socialization, then you've got to decide, do you want to be part of a social group? If it's affecting you, if it's affecting the way you enjoy or not enjoy that game, if it affects the reason you play, then you should find another group. But if it doesn't, then let it go and continue to play. So really, it's about your why. Why do you play with this group? Do you play with the group because they're your friends and you enjoy hanging out with them? In that case, let it go and keep playing. But if you play the game because you want to be challenged and you enjoy working your brain and building your skills, then it sounds like you need to find a more competitive group. The other group who is competitive won't let you in. They won't let you in. Is it a private group or is it a drop-in? If it's a private group, then you have no recourse. If it's a drop-in, you should talk to the group leader and let them know that you're trying to participate and you're being blocked. If somebody's playing in a drop-in group and they're blocking people from joining, that's not how drop-in groups work, unless it's an open space where groups come to play. In that case, you have no recourse either. The other group who is competition, okay, occasionally you have a slow pass. This angers them. That's terrible. There's no reason to get angry about it, but they're clearly competitive players. So you would want to build your decision-making skills and learn to make quicker decisions so that you can keep up the pace of the game and they wouldn't get upset. You got to keep up the pace of the game, especially in a competitive group. Otherwise, it could cause people to go on tilt, and that you wouldn't want to be part of that dynamic. Yeah. So the social group, do you play with the social group? They are 10 years plus, you've only been playing 16 months. So maybe you need to build your skills a little bit more before playing with them. Are they a private group though? These veterans, are they a private group or is it an open setting? Or is it a group with 8 people and 4 of them are competitive and 4 of them are chatty? I'm not sure. Yeah. Okay, well, it sounds like you have some things to think through. Just decide on just friends who play together. That's the other group. Okay. So if you're playing with friends then and this person is chatting, you just have to decide if you're going to let it go and just enjoy yourself as best you can. And then as far as the other group goes, you just need to build your skills and see, test yourself to see if you can keep up with their pace. Make your own group of other people. You could make your own group. Just make sure everybody knows the dynamic in the group that is expected so that you get all people of the same mindset, this like-minded people. Let us know how it goes. All right, I guess I'm going to sign off. I do have another thing coming up here, so I need to get offline. But thank you for the questions. I appreciate it. I hope that you find a group to play with that meets your needs. I'm going to go ahead and sign off now, and we'll be back again tomorrow and Wednesday for the members only live streams. Thursday, there will not be a Beat the Pro. I'm going to be off that day to be with my husband. He's having surgery. And then on Friday night, we'll do Simply Social and Beat the Pro at the normal time. All right. Oh, yeah. Oh, let's see. Misty says, I want to challenge myself and have a great day. Oh, good. Well, you might consider creating your own group with no chatter during the game. So just say, for example, we'll chat while mixing, or meet before or after, or take a break in the middle for lunch. And then during the game, no socialization. So you can just focus on the game. Some groups have that as a house rule. All right, I am going to sign off. Thank you again so much for being here. Moderators, thank you so much for helping monitor the chat. I appreciate it. We'll see you again in the next couple days, and then on Friday night. If you like this video, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed to my channel, consider subscribing. Click the little gray bell if you do. That way you'll get notification for when I post new videos, and you won't miss an opportunity to learn a new strategy or pick up an insight to the game that could give you an advantage at the table. Between now and the next video, may all your picks be keepers.